What's up, people? Alright. So last night, I was sitting there, I'm thinking deeply. And you know, there's a point where it's like, shit keeps going wrong, and you're just like, what the fuck? You know? And you know, it's like what Einstein said. He said, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And it's like, things keep going wrong, eventually you're going to be like, what the fuck? What is causing it to go wrong? And there's a point where you gotta keep it really fucking real. You know, you might just, have this fucking false idea of how shit works. And you keep, oh, here's how it's gonna work. And you try, hey, why did it not happen like I expected? And there's a point where it's just like, what the fuck is going on? And you have to keep it ultra fucking real and assess your fucking situation. And that's basically what I was doing last night. I'm sitting there, talking to this girl. I don't even really know her. I'm just thinking back, like, man, there's a bunch of girls in my life that done went south with in one way or another, and just other stuff went south, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, why is it like this? And I was looking at my situation, and there's some shit that's happened in my life that was caused by other people. Like, the easy way to say it is I've been fucked over by people in a lot of ways in the past. And so I'm just like, I had to keep it real. I had to keep it 100, you know what I mean? And what I found out is like, dude, there's no such thing as justice. I mean, it's an idea, but it's not very real. You know what I mean? And I'll explain it from like the most fundamental way I can, because I was just sitting there just like, I thought the whole thing through, man, and I just know it, and I want to explain to people so they're not fooled. They're not like thinking that here's how the world works when it doesn't work that way, and you're gonna be fucked over, and you're just like, wait, what? Why did this, what the fuck, and you're gonna just be like, hey, like everybody's doing all this fuck shit. It's like, yeah, because that's how the world works. You know what I'm saying? Justice is only applied in a very limited fashion, and even then, it is very partial. I have not seen any sign of holistic, correctly applied justice. There's people in jail right now who in there didn't even do nothing, who got fucked over. There's people who are free who's done fucked everybody over. Okay? That's what it is. I've been fucked over, I'm telling you. I know this personally. So here we're gonna go from a very fundamental aspect, okay? So if we look at this world, okay, we're humans, we're animals, whatever. Okay, there's a fucking food chain, okay? If there was justice, when that lion went and ate that zebra and tore him apart, would that happen? No, because that's pretty fucked up. That zebra, the parents created that little baby zebra, and that zebra, his whole life was taking care of himself, making sure he stayed out of danger, eating grass and staying healthy. And all of a sudden this lion comes up and just devours his whole fucking flesh and body, rips his fucking body apart just for his own little selfish, indulgence. That's part of life. What is that? Is that fairness? Or is that just part of life? You know what I'm saying? And, if you're talking about fairness, of course that's not fair. That's fucked up. That zebra, motherfucking selfish lion just said, hey, I'm gonna take that zebra's body and eat it. But that's what we do. We do that to animals, you know what I'm saying? And, so that's one aspect. And then you could look at this aspect. There's what's called force, okay? When it came down to it, you got a zebra, hey, I'm a zebra, this is my body. And then you have a lion, the lion says, well, I'm not too sure about that. And then the lion says, we'll see if you can defend your own body. I'm a lion, I got teeth, I got claws. And the zebra's like, fuck. The zebra's hoping for some type of like divine justice. Oh yeah, ain't nobody I'm a zebra, he couldn't dare do me wrong like that. The motherfucking lion says, because I'm a lion, because I have claws and force, it means I can come through and just take whatever the fuck I want. Now here's where we get somewhere, okay? That is basically, that's a fundamental aspect of nature. It's always the big dog, whatever it is. If you're a fucking weakling, motherfuckers gonna come through and trample you. And that's where we rely on externally applied, justice systems, okay? And I'll give you an example in the human world, okay? Back in like the Wild West, you know, when they first, you know, came up with the revolvers and shit, like motherfucking like gangs would come up and they just go around robbing the fuck out of everybody. Everybody's like, damn, like there's nothing they could do about it, because these people came through with force. There's nothing they could do. They could get shot. There's nothing nobody could do. So to combat that, they came up with the sheriff's office, which is basically like a gang, which is a collective force of people with guns that said, we're not gonna let you do that. We're gonna stand up for the fucking weakling. You know what I'm saying? And that's the externally applied justice. You know what I'm saying? But even then, you know, it is only, sometimes the robbers can do some fuck shit and get away. You know? Sometimes somebody could get falsely prosecuted. And the force of that, you know, sheriff's office, they are the determining factor. They say that guy is guilty, and they're the ones who administer justice. And that's what the whole judicial system is these days, okay? Or they can say that guy's, I don't know, they can say that guy's innocent, that guy's guilty. They're the motherfucking decision makers because they are the most powerful force. That is what it is. That is how the world works, okay? And thankfully we have a good social order in the world where we do have, you know, law and order. And the greatest force on the planet is kind of this democratically elected, you know, law and order, criminal justice system force. You got the police officers, the armies, whatever. But the problem with that, like I said, it is not perfect. It's, you know, sometimes motherfuckers get locked up, they didn't even do nothing. They're in jail right now. Sometimes motherfuckers, the big force, they were scared of you, so they shot you or something. It's not perfect. It's really just a dominant force game. That is all it is. The only way that justice is applied is if the dominant force decides to apply it. And even then, it is never going to be, it's just not perfect. It's not perfect. It makes mistakes. It says you're guilty when you're not. It says you're innocent when you are. It misses people. People get away. It can only be applied in certain ways. You know, with the penal code, there's a lot of stipulations, and it's like, you know, if you do this, even though like by common sense it might not be wrong, like people want to stick to the penal code because it's like, oh, we don't want to, like, you know, we want to act like we're fair. And it's like, but like, and that's why we got trial by jury, so people kind of have a common sense aspect when judging if someone's guilty or not. You know, but sometimes even the jurors, you know, they stick to the penal code instead of being like, you know, you might have violated the penal code, but it's like, yeah, in context, it really wasn't that bad. It was like, yeah, we understand, it was reasonable. You know, but they still might say, oh, well, it's a penal code. That's, you know, can't just let them get by. We're going to think the penal code, everybody's going to think they can do that, you know. Everybody thinks they can break the penal code. But it's always common sense. There's always context. There's always specific context. And, you know, and even then, you know, so you might have these things like, you know, if you do this, you broke the penal code, but it's really not even wrong because it's in a certain context. Or on the other hand, you know, the penal code only covers so much, so you're doing everything, all types of fuck that shit, but it's like, it's not the penal code, so it's like, it's not illegal, so the law enforcement is not going and fucking with that, you know? So what you have is a lot of people out here doing some fuck shit that's not getting dealt with, and then you have shit that, you know, people are doing that they're getting fucked over for, which really ain't even that bad. And you can see that in the world. You can see that. And that's why you see a lot of fucked ass people getting away with shit on top of the, you know, they're prospering in the world because we have this, the justice system just don't work too properly. They don't work perfectly. It can be better. There's improvements to be made, I'll tell you that. And I've talked about it before, talking about more of a common sense approach to it. If you want to take it to that, we can talk about, you go back to like, just imagine living in a tribe. And I think that's where a lot of our morality comes from, is like being pack animals. Like, you know, we don't give a fuck if we kill a fucking, I mean, kind of do, depending on how you are. You like, you'll kill a cow because you're hungry, you know what I'm saying? But you think a lot harder when it comes to a person. Like, ooh, I don't want to, you know, you're a person. Like, and there's a certain morality between humans. It's like just understanding, we're all human, you know? And I think that comes from being pack animals, social, you know what I mean? Some animals don't give a fuck. Like, some crocodiles will eat each other. They don't give a fuck. But we're humans, we're social, we're mammals, whatever. And so if you think back to like our natural order of living in like tribes and stuff, you can imagine the type of justice that's there, you know? So the whole tribe is living together maybe, and then maybe somebody like steals something from somebody. You know, just to keep order in the tribe, you know, the whole pack or whatever will say, hey, you can't have that. And I think that's where our morality comes from. It's just common sense. It's like common sense morality. It's like, hey, you can't do that because you're just violating your brother in the pack. It's like, if you want the pack to stay strong, functional, you don't do that. You know what I'm saying? I think that's where most of our morality comes from, and that should be the basis of our common sense fucking morality, and or that we use to like judge who's guilty and who's not. You know, we should base a penal code, and that's the thing. I don't think a penal code works because you're codifying stuff. It's like, you can't write every nuance. There's always a context. You know, like I said, you can write something, oh, don't do this, but it's like, well, in this context, it's not even bad. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't even know if you can codify it. You know what I mean? As like, there just needs to be a common sense approach to it. So like, if somebody is like, you know, on trials, like, that's what the jurors are for. You know, they need to take a common sense approach to the situation. Be like, well, you know, you broke the penal code, but look, in context, we understand. You slapped this guy. He was acting funny, whatever. You had to, you know, something had to be done. You know what I mean? It's understandable. And I think that's the best way to administer justice is, you know, with the common sense aspect. And like I said, it's always going to be the most dominant force. You know, if, you know, you can see certain countries and places, there's like a mafia, like a shit. In Mexico, they got like a motherfucking drug cartel. And then they got motherfucking police that can't do shit. These motherfucking drug cartels are motherfuckers running shit. There ain't nothing these motherfuckers can do about it. And, you know, that's when and they're not a just force. They don't, I'm not gonna say not just. Look, I'm not trying to say shit about the the motherfucking cartels, you know what I'm saying? No. But it's not, their first priority is not justice. Their first priority is their own shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, here, we want to make money, we want to do this, just stay out of our way, and we'll, you know, treat you whatever. And it's been like that through history. You could see motherfuckers like back when like Genghis Khan came through, the dominant force came through. He had no interest in being a just, you know, leader of a huge, you know, collective force. You know, he just said, no, I just want what I want. And that's the same thing like when them wild west, you know, gangs came through. It's like they just running on everybody and nobody did shit until a collective force that was stronger than them came through and said that ain't gonna fly. And it's the same thing with like leaders. You can look at like the Roman Empire. You know, when you had a just leader, you know, everybody lived a good life because people like followed rules. Like the fucking dominant force would like enforce a good social order. But when you had a leader like, let's say, Nero, everybody hated it. Everybody hated you know, that motherfucker was like, fuck everybody. Like, you know, you dare even say this or that. It's like, that's the difference between living in tyranny and, you know, just democracy or whatever. And like, it has to do with the leadership of the most dominant force. You know, the leadership of the most dominant force is going to determine like the character of the most dominant force, you know what I mean, of that force. You know, so if the leadership is trash, the pack's going to be trash. And they're going to come through and like, woo, just fucking ransack everything, you know what I mean? And everybody's going to have a very bad time. You're going to be subjected to that force. Just like the zebra and the lion. It's like, fuck, there ain't nothing. You know, if the lion says, I want to eat your flesh, the zebra's like, fuck, there ain't nothing I can do about that. Unless all the other zebras ganged up and fucking jumped that lion, maybe. You know, at the end of the day, that is a natural aspect of life. The dominant force takes what the fuck it wants, does what the fuck it wants. And if we want justice, there has to be a dominant force that enforces that justice. If we want real justice, the dominant force has to enforce that justice properly. And like I said, I think that has to do with common sense. Ooh! I love how I just explained the whole thing. Tell me that wasn't beautiful. I'm telling you, I had to keep it real. I'm like, I just gotta keep it real. I gotta admit the truth. I can't keep living this lie. I can't keep living, you know, that's the truth, man. That's the whole truth of it all. That's natural understanding of how this stuff works. I'm telling you. And I think a lot of people, they just, you know, we just live in society and we just take it for granted. We're just like, yeah, it's just, there's law and order and this and that. That's not all it is. It's not all it is. I'm telling you, it's, you know, there's places in the world where you can see exactly what I'm talking about. There's tyrannical governments. There's like people like dictators and stuff, and people are having a terrible time. The dominant force is the government with the army, and it's like, these people are having a terrible time. Just like Nero. When Nero was around, everybody's like, dude, this sucks. Until somebody finally like assassinated him or something, you know? I'm not suggesting nothing. Don't throw that at me. You know, and on the other hand, there's certain places like where there's democracy and we elect our leaders. We elect good leaders, you know, to give that character to the dominant force. to enforce a good social order. I'm telling you, this is how everything works, yo. This is how it works. So that being said, I hope you guys learned something. I'm gonna let you look at this beautiful little bridge. We got a cool little train going by. Look at what's possible when you got some good, prosperous, stuff, some good social order, you know what I mean? People can function properly, we can make prosperity, life can be good, you know what I mean? When you got a bunch of crazy people just like, I just want selfish stuff and I'm coming through and I'm stealing everything, it's like, people can't even function. There ain't no growth, no prosperity. It's terrible. You got like dark ages, whatever. I'm telling you, this is how this shit works. It's so important that people understand this so we can correctly, use it. This is insight that we need to use to, properly kind of arrange our society. You know what I'm saying? We need to like plan our situation. We need to like engineer our situation. And this is just so insightful. It's helpful. It's just super helpful. People need to understand this whole thing. So I'm glad I kept it real myself. And I'm glad I got this little cell phone so I can make this little video. And if you listen to the whole thing, I'm glad you listen. If it helps, I'm glad it helps. Thank you guys for listening.